everyone, and welcome to issue number 15 of the monthly Dive Into the Longbox. Ajax, it's been over a year we've been doing this for. We're on a month 15. It's currently May of 2024, so we'll be looking at things in May for this month in Wizard a little later on today on this episode. Make sure that you follow our Twitter. We have a Twitter, the Dive Into the Longbox Twitter. You can find that wherever. Oh, sorry, not Twitter, on X. My apologies. You can find us on X, where we tweet about random stuff about comic books and like and retweet fun things. So I'm also going to post some things that I'm going to be talking about in this episode, Ajax. I might have done something to have a visual aid for people and for yourself when I discuss some things later on. So we're going to post that on the Twitter as well. But...
Wait, Gabe, do you mean X as in X from Dark Horse?
Oh yes. That Frank Miller cover, I found it in the wild. I was like, oh man, I found it for like $2. I scooped it up because I remember we loved the trading card. The trading card had it, and it was just that cover, and I was like, fuck yeah, dude, bought it. And then I went to so since we were last recorded, Free Comic Book Day happened because it's May, so it just happened this month. It was so much fun. When I went, it had a cake, a superhero themed cake. They had food for the kiddies. They had little juice jugs for them to drink. They had some juices and sodas for the parents there. And brother, it was the most packed I've ever seen the comic book shop I'm in. The shop that I go to is very small. It's called Heroes and Hitters in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. Very small. In the middle area is full of like dollar bin books. They had to clean all of that out just so we can fit people inside of the store. And big shout out to them. Big shout out to them because I walked in, and they have like stairs where like the new books are, and I thought that's where the free ones were. So I walk in and everyone goes up there, and I look to the left and right on like the register is all the free books, and I was like, oh, and I ran over. So technically I was last in because there was a line to get in. I was last in line technically, but I was first at the books because I noticed it before anyone else. And they have two entrances, like at the back door and the front door, and each door had long lines to get in. And I was like, holy shit. Like, people love comic books still. This is cool. And they had a deal, it was like half off back issue. Every back issue that was bagged and boarded got 50% off. So I racked up a bunch of X-Men stuff to fill up.
That's a great deal in itself.
It's a great deal in itself. So there was tons of people in there, not only getting free books, but after they got their free books, because they didn't have a limit. You can get one of each book, and there you're good. They didn't limit you to 2 books, 3 books. No, you can get one of every single one, but you can only get one of each. You can't get any more than that, so there's enough for everyone.
Of course.
By the time I left, it was basically already almost gone. Like, they had stacks and stacks of books. Some of them they didn't have that I wanted, like Valiant Verse. I wanted to read through that because I wanted to try to jump into Valiant Verse, but sadly they didn't have it. That one probably sold out really quick because if you are a person that has a box there, they pulled your free books beforehand and put some in your box. So say if I was out of state and I missed Free Comic Book Day and I went on Wednesday to get my books, they would have some Free Comic Book Day stuff for me, so I didn't miss out. So I was very happy about that because I walked in and they're like, oh, Gabe, come here. And I was like, no, I don't think there's anything in my box, guys. Like, I think I got everything this week. And they're going, no, come here. And there was a bunch of free comic books. And I was like, oh, shit, okay, thank you. Like, I appreciate that. I didn't even have to wait in line. That's cool. I didn't know I could just walk in and get that. So very, very happy that they took care of everyone there. Very happy they had a lot of business that day. A lot of kids buying old books, which I thought was very cool. The X-Men area was swamped, so I got my X-Men books and got out because it was so packed in there. Everyone was getting X-Men stuff because, 97 at the time still is, it was booming. But this was like the middle of the show being aired, so.
It's crazy, isn't it, Gabe? I don't think there's been like an X-Men hysteria since probably like the first live-action movie came out.
Yeah, literally. It's changed the tide now with Marvel. Like, now people are really excited for Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, they were already. But after that X-Men 97 series, people are getting real excited about that. And the talk of animation and live action is actually something we're going to talk about today, later on, Ajax. So that'll be a fun little discussion that we have. But in the meantime, since Free Comic Book Day happened and all that, have you read anything else, Ajax, in the last month that we spoke?
I'm trying to think. I've been reading a lot of Gen 13.
Oh, really?
That's mainly what I've been reading because I'm trying to read all of it.
Yeah. It's very doable.
I'm trying to read all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because once you get past the Image and Wildstorm stuff, the Image stuff, Wildstorm, I think they had like 30-something issues, 40-something issues of Gen 13, if I'm correct.
Something like that, and then there's like Gen 13 bootleg, which is like a sub.
Yes.
Like a spin-off.
I have the Gen 13 zine, which I think is really cool. It's like a smaller size book. And what it is, it's like a little magazine, but like in character interviews from the Gen 13 cast, which I think is very cool. So they ask of course, and like the questions are by fans. So they're asking Fairchild like, "What's your bra size?" and stuff like that, like crazy shit. Like, and she answers too, which is crazy. Which is like, man, like they had all that thought out when they wrote this. Like she has a specific bra size, which is crazy to me.
But yeah,
I got
Gen 13's mainly what I've been reading, but I'm gonna read Blood Squad 7 this week as well to see how that is.
That is a big one that I'm very excited for.
I'm trying to, cause I mostly read like the old stuff, cause I have so much catching up to do. That's what I always say, cause like I'm still kind of new when it comes to reading comic books. I've only considered myself to become like a regular reader in like 2018, somewhere around that. So like I still have so much catching up to do when it comes to comic books that most of the time, like I want to read the current stuff, but I always put it on the back burner to read like the old stuff.
There's something about the old stuff that like is so much more like lively. Like there's I don't know how to describe it. I read an older miniseries that I had no reason to, but it was just because it was very like peak 90s. Actually, I'll just say here, I read Black and White from Image Comics. This was actually a pretty fun book. It's a 3-issue miniseries. It's actually not bad. It's about like a really rich dude that's kind of like Batman. He doesn't like to kill. He doesn't like guns, and I know there's a gun on the cover there, but they're made with bullets that are not piercing and they don't kill. They knock someone out if they're hit. They're like pellets almost, you know.
They're like rubber bullets.
Yeah, exactly. And he's teaming up with this chick here of Asian descent, and her father was murdered by another man from China, and she's trying to avenge her father's death, or so we think so. So it's actually a pretty fun book. I had a fun time with it. You know, it's not bad. Would I recommend? Yeah, I would. I would recommend this book. It actually has some fun art in it as well. Art T-Bear worked on this. Art T-Bear worked on this. He was the writer, penciler, inker, all that fun stuff. I think he actually worked on this with his wife as well. They both worked on this together. So it was actually a fun read. 3 quick little issues. What was the reason for reading it? None. I just had it in my collection, saw it was 3 little quick issues, and I just read it through in the matter of like 2 days.
What I find so fascinating about 90s Image, I know a lot about 90s Image. However, there's still some stuff like Black and White, for example. I've never heard of it. There's stuff that slips through the cracks because at that time they were publishing so many titles.
Yeah. And this was still pretty early on. This was 94 this came out.
Yeah, that's still like the first wave of like Image, really.
Yeah. It is a fun time though. A lot of explosions, a lot of guns, a lot of cool bad girl action, kicking people, killing them, cutting limbs off. Cuz she's like a hard, cold hard killer. Like she's very cool. Very Elektra-esque, but it's a fun story. And like I said, only 3 issues, so but there's a lot of life in it, like when these 90s books that I really like. It doesn't feel boring or like it's my biggest thing, and I've said it before on the show, that like all these comics just want to be adapted to something else now, so they want to make it where it's like, oh, this can be translated to film. Because everyone wants it to be adapted to a movie or something like that. These 90s books, that wasn't in mind. They were like, let's just create the wildest stories that we can imagine, and let's just do it.
Yeah, I think you shouldn't write a comic book in the sense that you think it's going to be adapted into a TV show and a movie. You should write a comic book however you want to write it.
Yeah.
And if it so happens to be adapted into a TV show or a movie, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
But it should be the studios that should adapt to you. You shouldn't adapt to the studios.
Exactly. And I feel like that's the problem now. Everyone's adapting to like an MCU type of flow to their books where it has to be set up a certain way. The books are kind of like dark still, like visually dark, like bland colors. There's not a lot of colorful books really. That's why I gravitate towards things like Blood Squad 7, because it's like straight up a 90s book. It's just a big homage to 90s books. It's why I love Local Man, because you do get that grittier, real story, but it's made like that for a reason. And the whole back of the book is the over-the-top explosions, like little 8-page mini 90s book that you get, which I think is very cool. That I feel like that's what's missing with current day books. Is even my pull list, like my stuff I've been reading that I'm highlighting. I've been reading a lot of modern stuff, but it's a lot of stuff that's been ongoing. The only real new things are Space Ghost. Space Ghost #1 came out. This is a fun time. I recommend this wholeheartedly. This is just a badass. They pitched it as Ultimate Space Ghost, like an Ultimate Universe Space Ghost. And it's perfect. You don't need to know anything about Space Ghost before this. I only knew Space Ghost from the talk show growing up because I didn't grow up with the original show. I grew up with the talk show on Adult Swim, and Cartoon Network. So this was cool because it does have some familiar faces, like Brack is in this. He's the big bad villain, but they make him cool. It's like what they did with Transformers and G.I. Joe over at Image Comics and just made them, like, badass. That's what they did here with Space Ghost, and they knocked it out the park. Space Ghost is like a Batman type of person in this, which I think is very cool. Like, there's a great visual of people, like, fearfully shooting in the darkness, and all you see is his logo on his chest and his eyes, and I was like, that's fucking cool. Space Ghost as Batman's cool. It's a great idea. It's Batman in space. It's cool. But he's also like a loving person because like the 2 kids are in it from the cartoon. His sidekicks are there, and they're scared because they think they're gonna die because they're alone. They don't have their father, and they're like, "We have no one." And you see a hand reach out. He's like, "I'm here for you." And you see a hand reach out, and it's Space Ghost. And you're like, "Yeah, it's fucking Space Ghost." After they were scared of him, even though they were scared of him, he's still trying to help them, which I think was very cool. The only other 2 things I was reading, it's not a lot. The only other 2 things I read through the first omnibus here of Hellboy. So I finally read through Seed of Destruction.
Hellboy's awesome.
Yes, this is a fun time. This is another book I had to sit down and really take some time to read because there's a lot of like religious type speaking in this, like proverb type talk, which it does take some time to like read through because you got to understand what's being, because it's all for a reason. So like it's being said to like paint a picture. So you have to kind of understand what's being told, but it is a fun time. The art style, of course, as you know, it's Mike Mignola art, so it's amazing. So it speaks for itself. Every page is like a beautiful cover. Each panel is like a beautiful cover, which I really, really love. So I almost said Space Ghost. Hellboy Seed of Destruction was a fun little... I bought it basically because I had nothing else to buy on the border. Barnes and Noble. I had just some money to spend, and I didn't want to get the Clone Saga, so I got Hellboy.
How much was it?
$29.99, but because it's
that's still a good price.
Yeah, but because it's Barnes and Noble and I'm a member, I get 10% off every purchase. So anytime I buy a graphic novel there, it's 10% off. And if I go with Justine, I get her teacher discount, which is like 20% off. So that is always a fun time. That's how we're always there buying books.
Shout out Justine.
Shout out Justine. Helped us out with our cards on our recent stream, which is available on YouTube now if you're listening to this, so you can go back and watch that. Watch us go through some Deathmate cards.
Boy, oh boy, we sure went through the same ones.
Boy, oh boy, we did. And we didn't even finish the pack. Spoiler alert. But you can watch our disappointment as we go through. And the last thing here is a little book you may have heard from a little writer, a young guy named Frank Miller. Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli's Batman Year One. I read it finally. I know this story basically by heart, but I got this when I was in Mystic, Connecticut, and their little bookstore there had a comic book section of a bunch of graphic novels, so I picked up The Long Halloween, and I picked up Year One, 2 kind of core Batman books, and I was like, fuck it.
Those are like essential Batman stories.
Exactly, and even though I know this story basically by heart, even though there's some parts I don't like cheating Commissioner Gordon, I never liked that. Commissioner Gordon never seemed like the type to do that, but nonetheless, they did it, and it had a kind of a reason in the story. It added some tenseness, trying to blackmail him and stuff like that. But this was, again, a fun read. I knew it was going to happen, but it was still fun to read through. The animated movie, I could hear it in my head from when they made the movie of it because they just did it word for word from the book. So,
which is how you're supposed to do it, people.
Exactly.
You're supposed to do it.
There were scenes in this, and I could hear it in my head, and I'm like, do I hear it because I just remember this from, the movie? or is it because I just know the story so much without even having to read it? Like, I don't know. I couldn't tell what it was, but the story's very familiar, but it was still fun to read. There's definitely a lot of stuff in here that it felt like I was reading a pre-script for the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, down to even how Catwoman looks in this. She looks very much like what's her name that plays her in the Batman movie.
You mean Commissioner's daughter, Barbara?
No. In the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, who plays Catwoman.
Oh, Zoe Kravitz.
Zoe Kravitz, yes. So I was saying, like, even down to this, how she looks in this looks just like her. Like, this felt like I was reading like the outline for the Batman. That's what it felt like I was reading. Like, there were scenes of her in bed with all her cats too, and it's like, yeah, this is Catwoman. Like, it looks just like her apartment from the movie. They pulled a lot from this book for that movie, which I think is very cool.
Like the scene in the movie where she's opening the fridge and she's licking the milk with the cats.
Yep. There's a scene where she feeds the cats their milk and stuff like that, and they're all running over. Like, it's very much, they pulled a lot from this, which I'm very happy about. So definitely pull from a story that's really good for your movie, and it'll work, as we saw with the Batman movie.
They pulled from that, but they pulled a lot from Earth 1. Batman Earth 1 by
they did.
Jeff Johns. They pulled a lot from that.
They had a good mix of those books there for that movie. Man, I can't wait for the second one to come out of that movie. I'm so intrigued of what they do, where they're gonna go with it.
And I'm looking forward to the Penguin HBO show.
Dude, me too.
See how that is. Yeah,
I'm so excited. Every time I think of Penguin, I think of that scene where he's like, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh,
hey, yo, what are you doing?
He's like, look at the body. Oh, come on!" I love that. He nailed the Penguin, like a thug mobster Penguin. Like, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Colin Farrell had so much fun playing Penguin.
Listen, man, Colin Farrell as Penguin and as Bullseye are my favorite roles of him ever. Goofy Bullseye throwing little shits into the dude at the police station. Like, it's so goofy, but I loved it. It was like little pins he threw into him. Oh, man. He's a phenomenal actor. I'm glad he got recognized for Batman being so well in that. He killed it. He got some nominations for that movie, too, because of how well he did.
I believe
he won Best Makeup Effects, too, because he just completely morphed into a new person.
Yeah, I believe the guy who played Riddler got nominations as well, Paul Dini.
Oh, he was so good. He was so good. Perfect casting. He's in other stuff, and like whenever I watch him, and like I see posts of him on Instagram, I'm like, I don't trust this motherfucker.
No, not Paul Dini. Paul Dini is the Batman writer.
Oh, I'm thinking of Riddler.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to think of the guy like Riddler, the guy who played Riddler. I'm trying to think of his name. It's Paul something.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, him. Whenever I see him, because I just see Riddler, and I'm like, I don't trust this motherfucker.
Paul Dano.
Dano.
Okay, that's his name. Paul Dano. Paul Dano. Well, you know where
Paul Dini, I don't trust that motherfucker.
You know where I saw Paul Dano before?
Where?
He was one of AJ's nerdy friends in The Sopranos.
Oh, really? Was he?
He was, yeah. Yeah,
what?
He was.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
Holy shit, why don't I remember that? Give me some Sopranos comics.
He's probably in like 4 episodes. That's probably why.
God, I want to watch that show all over again. That was such a fun show to watch. Oh, man. Speaking of shows, Ajax, we talked about it a little bit earlier. We know X-Men 97 has taken the world by storm. Invincible has taken the world by storm. But also so has shows like The Boys, and upcoming movies like Deadpool hopefully will do that. Avengers Infinity War killed it. Live action and animation have been doing great, both in their own ways. I say more so now, animated has really been showing that it's a viable way to create your superhero products and bring them to life. But I think it's an age-old question that I think is a very good topic to talk about today, Jackson. Something that I think will be talked about till the end of time. For comic book adaptions, live action or animated, how do you swing for that?
Animated.
Animated?
I mean, straight up.
One word.
I like both. I really do. I like a good live action movie. I like a good animated show. But I feel like 9 times out of 10, when you're adapting a comic book, it's so much easier to adapt it as an animated show or an animated movie.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's a lot cheaper for them too to do that than having to pay someone to show a building exploding and model that and rig it and do all that in post edit. Just make it animated.
It is a lot more cost efficient, but it's also, I just feel like, again, I feel like it's easier to adapt it.
Yeah.
Like X-Men 97 is practically a one-of-one adaptation of like multiple Claremont stories.
Dude, and there's a certain scene, I won't say it so I don't spoil people that haven't seen it. There is a scene where literally it's pulled the exact panel from a book, the exact panel, recreated with the exact wording that's said in said panel. And I'm like, dude, they literally did it word for word from page to screen. Like they copied their whole flow. But dude, it was perfect. It's perfect because that's who people don't like. Listen, comic book fans are so simple. We just want to see what we read and loved. Just make it come to life. Don't change this little thing or change this thing and swap it with this. Just make it how it was, because if it's something good, it was good for a reason because people enjoyed it. Don't change it. I follow the suit of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's my mindset with a lot of things. And I know you're the same way too.
Yes.
So it's like I never understood that with any movies. Like even early on, I never understood it with superhero movies of why things need to change for cinema. I get like if it's something that we can't film, that makes sense, you know? Then just don't put that in. But don't try to like squeeze like a story arc in that just doesn't make sense in that movie, or incorporate a bunch of characters, which was a thing Fox loved to do with their Spider-Man movies. Let's put a million villains into one movie because who knows if we're going to make another one. So let's put 6 villains in this one. I never understood that.
Let's just make Spider-Man 3 completely convoluted.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Like I never understood that. Even watching that movie as a kid, I was like, there's a lot happening in this movie. Even then I was like,
I remember liking it as a kid, but also feeling a little disappointed.
I remember reading online that Eric Foreman was going to be in it, and I was like, oh, is he going to be like another Peter Parker? Like, what? And they're like, no, he's Eddie Brock.
Venom.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah, he's the whiniest Venom imaginable.
I remember like the Photoshop edits that came out of like him, and it was like the Eric Foreman head like this, with like a Venom jacked body. And they're like, oh, yes, perfect. I got to find those pictures again. Like, oh, man, that was such a weird time. But they killed it with Sandman. He should have been the main villain for the movie. That was, bar none, that should have been the main villain of that movie. Because he had the...
Trying to remember. What's his name? Thomas Ian Church? I believe that's his name, the actor.
Yeah, and he came back to do audio lines for the recent Spider-Man movie as well. He even said, too, he would love to come back as Sandman. He has no problem. Like, he loved that character and loved his story. And I was like, so did everyone else. He had the most intricate, detailed story of that whole movie.
Yeah, he was a great pick to be Sandman. He was also really good in the Twisted Metal live-action show. He plays the cop.
Yes,
he's basically the main bad guy of the show, and he's really good in it.
He is very good in that. He is very good. Yeah, the cop that was, like, bullied as a kid and, like, made fun of. Yeah. That was a good show. I ended up finally watching it. That was a good time.
It was better than I thought it was going to be. For, like, a video game series where, like, there's not a lot of story to it.
Yeah. And I would say we're hitting a point now where this is still, like, on topic with this. I feel like video game movies and TV shows are becoming the new superhero movies now. Things like Borderlands coming out. Fallout. I watched Fallout. That was a really fun time. And they did it in a way where you didn't have to play hours and hours of games to understand what's going on. If you did, it's still cool because there's a lot of Easter eggs for everyone that played the game.
Because it rewards you in a sense, yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, this is cool because I recognize this, I recognize that. They showed New Vegas, and I was like, oh shit, New Vegas, that's cool. My dad was like, oh, what's that? And he started like looking it up and all that, and he loved the show, and he had no Fallout history knowledge before. But like Twisted Metal was a good time. Halo, mixed bag.
Yeah.
Could have been better. But even then, it's not like super horrible. It's not Ant-Man and the Wasp, you know? It's not Madam Web, which is the easy one to punch at. But now it's on a streaming service, and I may watch it. Because now I don't have to pay money technically to watch it.
I don't regret paying money to go see it.
I wish I saw it in theaters. I wish Drew didn't talk me out of it.
Because at the end of the day, it was still gonna flop. Even if I paid $20 to go see it, it was still gonna flop.
But I think that's gonna be the new wave we see, especially with like Last of Us too. That's gonna be the new wave of things is video game movies and TV shows, especially if Borderlands does well, because Borderlands is a fun, very fun game, and could be a very fun movie, which it looks like it already is from the trailer. It looks like it's a good time. It's like off the walls bonkers, which again pleads our case. Why can't they do this shit in comics, like comic book movies? They do it sometimes. Don't get me wrong. Like, things like Endgame, they went above and beyond for. But I'm watching Borderlands, it's like, yeah, let's have these colorful explosions and giant guns and all this shit. And I'm like, yeah, why can't we do that for comic book movies? Do they think it'll, like, look goofy and not professional or cool enough? I never got that. I don't know. I never understood it. Or even, like, the costumes. I never understood that either. They were very scared to do costumes, which I'm very happy that they're getting over.
There's nothing more goofy than your average MCU joke.
Dude,
because it happens every 2 minutes.
Nothing cracks me up more online. First of all, I hate every MCU joke in all their movies, for the most part, unless it's Guardians. But what cracks me up online is people saying like, oh, look, here's this person's costume, but it's a Marvel Cinematic Universe version, and it has all these like tactical lines and fucking shoulder like padding and all that, like all this unnecessary shit. It's so true though, because I was looking at the Wolverine costume, and I'm like, they didn't have to do all that. Like, there's a bunch of like folds and layers to make the costume. I'm like, just make the costume. Just make Don't get me wrong, his costume looks great. In the recent trailer where he doesn't have the sleeves on, I'm like, oh, perfect, love it. But at the same time, it's like, all right, you don't need all that extra shit. I never understood that, which is why I think I like the animation better, because they're able to adapt these costumes that theoretically on camera would look goofy on a real person, can work well in a cartoon and still be presented in a very mature, serious way, as we've seen with Invincible and X-Men tackling very serious and important topics in a very good manner, I would say, for both shows.
Listen, Gabe, Wolverine's costume could be worse. He could have gotten the fucking Shatterstar treatment. I mean,
oh my god, dude. I don't know what that was.
Why even bother adapting Shatterstar to begin with?
Dude, and he's going to be in the movie. He's going to be in Deadpool.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, so Wade changed the timeline when he was fucking with the timeline to keep Shatterstar alive. That's awesome. That's definitely Liefeld being like, hey, can you not kill Shatterstar, please? That'd be great. If I can't have Cable in this movie, can I at least have my Shatterstar, please? He'll probably be just in like one scene, but...
But he could have adapted any other X-Force character.
Mm-hmm.
Why not Garrison Kane? Why not Weapon X?
Yeah. Dude, that'd be so sick. That'd be so sick. See, I was fine with Shatterstar, because I like Shatterstar. I always loved his look. I always thought, so I was like happy. Too. But there was a lot of other characters you could have adapted for this.
But here's the thing. I like Shatterstar too, but then you look at him in the movie, then you look at him in the comics, and it's like...
completely different.
What the hell happened? Like,
and then
it doesn't look anything like him.
And the way they killed him too was like, it's because his hair got in his way. It's because his hair covered his eyes. He died. I'm like, oh my god. Which is, I guess, making fun of the 90s designs and all that, but come on now. Oh man. But listen, it's Deadpool. So listen, no matter what Deadpool does, seemingly always gets a pass, and I feel like it always will. And I'm okay with that, because it's Deadpool. It's the best thing we got going right now with Marvel, besides X-Men 97.
I would say it's definitely the best thing going, like, live action-wise for Marvel.
Yeah. There's some stuff I haven't seen that are live action that I hear are amazing. Things like Hawkeye. I haven't seen that yet. It's been a very long time since it's released. I still haven't seen it. But everyone keeps saying, don't watch it now. Wait till Christmas time. It's a Christmas TV show. So I was like, all right, I'll wait till Christmas time to watch it finally. But I've been trying to catch up on some things. Like, Loki's really good. I'm in the minority where I like Season 1 better of Loki. There was a lot more memorable things in Season 2. But people look at me like I'm crazy when I say that. And they're like, what, you didn't like Season 2? I'm like, all right, I didn't say I didn't like it. I just said I like Season 1 better. There was cooler shit happening. They were actually jumping through timelines and doing cool shit. That was cool. And I liked it because they were doing crazy shit. Because it was fun to watch. The other one was very tame, Season 2. There wasn't a lot of shit going on compared to Season 1.
As far as Marvel live action is concerned, I'm probably looking forward to Daredevil Born Again.
Mm-hmm.
Like the most out of anything.
Yes.
Because I mean, when I think Daredevil, I think Born Again. Like that's his definitive story to me.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, that's a Frank Miller story.
Yep, exactly. And I will say, I am also in the other minority that I didn't hate Echo. I thought Echo was perfectly fine. And the way they portrayed Daredevil and Echo in that like one scene he's in, I was like, that's fucking Daredevil. Like, he was so badass in that one scene where he fought Echo for like 3 minutes and then wasn't on the show again. I was like, yeah, that's Daredevil. That's cool. That's badass. And I hope he's like that in the Daredevil show. So, fingers crossed.
I didn't see Echo, but
Echo,
eventually I do want to see it because Echo's a character I've always liked in the comics. Always found her really interesting.
No, and I enjoyed the show. A lot of people don't hate it. They just, it's not. It was sold as it can fall in line with like the Netflix shows because it does have that grittiness of the Netflix shows. It's very dark and gritty. It's just not as like bloody as the Netflix shows, and that was like people's complaint. And I'm like, who fucking cares? It's not super bloody, which is fine. It doesn't matter to me. But I could personally slot that in if I'm watching like the Netflix series, like all those shows. I would slot that in there personally. Because it does have that same like gritty street vibe to it, which I like. Like it deals with like gangs and gang lords and people getting like fingers cut off and shit like that. So I feel like that falls in line with that Netflix series. All that Defenders era of stuff. So definitely check it out though. I highly recommend it.
I'll tell you one thing I'm not looking forward to. That fucking Craven movie. Jesus Christ.
Oh my god, is that even still coming out? Did you hear who took over for Sony's Spider-Man stuff?
No, I didn't realize someone took over.
Let me see here. Is the news...
By the way, I think the Craven movie is coming out in October, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
I think. I'm gonna go see it, not because I think it's gonna be good. Kind of like Madam Web, where it's like, I have a morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
Where I feel like it's going to be a shit movie.
So I believe, if I am correct, the people who wrote Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, all those Spider-Verse movies, are being given the keys to the kingdom for Sony's Spider-Man stuff. Which makes me
really interesting.
Which makes me very happy. Because they love what they do, and they love Spider-Man, and it's like, that makes me happy.
So maybe we could get proper Spider-Man movies now.
That's what I'm hoping, unless Sony wants to step in and screw things up, as they may do. But that's what I heard. I'm not sure if that's confirmed, but me and my brother were talking about it. It was shared on a couple sites. Granted, who knows? It could just be word of mouth. I am hoping that is the case, though. I'm hoping that's the case.
Same. I mean, that would be great. At least on paper, it sounds great.
Yeah, if that's the case, it's looking real good for Spider-Man movies. Oh yeah, here we go. 5 days ago, they were talking about it. I'm trying to see what it says about it. It's a lot of reading. So yeah, it says like they're kind of like the Feige role of Sony, or that's what's being rumored. They're going to be like in that Feige role of like controlling everything, and making the yes or no decisions on things. And I'm guessing because Spider-Verse is probably the best-selling Spider-Man thing since the Sam Raimi movies, is my guess. They're like, all right, you guys know what you're doing. We trust you. Yeah. I'd say that it sold even more than the Sam Raimi movies. It has to have, right? Spider-Man 1.
It's got to be close.
Let's see. Spider-Man 1 made $825.9 million. Very close to $1 billion at the box office. Yeah. Spider-Man, we'll do, what was the first one? Was it Into the Spider-Verse?
Into the Spider-Verse, yeah.
In 2018 made... Wow, okay, never mind. A very lower amount. $384.3 million for that one. So, I gotta say, though, like, that one has a lot of, like, word of mouth. Like, everyone talked about that. Oh, the second one made $690.9 million.
That's significantly better.
Significantly better,
significantly better.
And you already know part 2 is going to be insane.
We have to consider the Sam Raimi movies got a lot of marketing behind
That is very true. That is very true. Yeah, and they were the first of its kind, when it comes to the
Yeah, they
Spider-Man
were the
movies.
first live-action Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, so that's understandable that they made so much movie. Also, like movies at the time, it's very different than movies nowadays. If we're being honest, like the marketing behind movies is a whole different animal back then than it was or than it is now. Like there's nothing like
Yeah.
when I was in line for Spider-Man 2, after I got my popcorn, I was waiting in line to go in. They were handing out pamphlets to kids of free comic books, and in the back of the comic book, it had an ad for all of the Spider-Man toys you can go to after watching the movie and go to Toys R Us or KB Toys and force your parents to buy the shit like me and my brother did. Literally that same day.
I kind of love that.
And it's cool because you also got a comic book with it, which I'm like, why don't they do that for superhero movies nowadays? They like to do tie-ins, but why not give away a book with your ticket? Or if you're there on a midnight release, why doesn't everyone get one free book? Even if they don't need it or want it, they can still get it. It puts a comic in someone's hand.
It's funny you say that, Gabe. That's a conversation I've had a lot with a friend of mine who runs Dirt Sheet Radio, Jonathan. We've had this conversation so much where it's like, Marvel has this amazing marketing machine behind it. Every movie, it feels like, it cracks like $1 billion at the box office.
Yeah.
Why not take advantage of that and hand out like free comic books?
Yeah, I literally don't get it.
And try to, get their comic sales up.
And it's not foreign for these companies. They have free comic book day once a year. And a lot of the time, sometimes they are just reselling older stories. But this year, I got new stories for free comic book day. So it's very doable. And even if you bring on the team you have currently writing your Spider-Man books or something, say if it's another Spider-Man movie, have them on for this one book, for this little 20-something page book. Have it 20 pages, the last 4 pages, advertisements for toys and T-shirts and apps for your phone or video games, in the back.
Yep.
That cross marketing is something that I don't see anymore in comic book media, which it existed even with Iron Man. It existed when Iron Man came out, and the Hulk. I remember going for the Hulk premiere, and I was being given pamphlets to go to the toy store and buy Hulk stuff. They had a giant Hulk statue you could take a picture in front of when you got into the movie theater. Like, all that stuff is just, like, dead now, and it's very upsetting. And I don't know if it's because there's not a lot of foot traffic in movie theaters anymore due to streaming services. That's probably 99% what it is. But I would just like to see more effort.
It could be that. I really would like to see Marvel and DC doubling down on giving away comic books at theaters. Would they lose a little bit of money? Sure. Maybe a little bit. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it would be insignificant.
Yeah. And I think about it, like, I know there are different finances for each, but they are all under the same Marvel umbrella. I think you can warrant taking a slight loss on your comic front if you're able to, one, bring in a new fan base, hopefully, that will go and buy another book. Maybe if you make this your number 1, and they're like, oh, I want to see what happens next in issue 2. First of all, that gets people going to the movie theater now on your movie side, and you're making millions of dollars on the movie side.
Yeah.
Because now people that are comic book fans are like, shit, I need this book. Let me go to the movie theater and get the issue 1 that I need. And maybe people that didn't read books before were like, oh, this is kind of cool. Let me go get issue 2 when it comes out next month. That'd be fun. Theoretically, that's a good idea. But knowing Marvel, they'd be like, here's Spider-Man with a weird comic book name. Don't go to the store and look at any of the other Spider-Man titles, though. Those are completely different. You'll just get confused. So...
Yeah. Gabe, I feel like people who watch anime are generally more willing to read manga, whereas I feel like people that go to the movie theater and watch Marvel movies or DC movies are not as willing to just pick up a comic book on their own volition.
And I think it's for that case we said earlier where these animated projects, so if they're watching all these animes and they're like, oh, I want to see I don't want to wait for next season of what happens next, or I don't want to wait for the English dub. I'm going to go to the bookstore. And first of all, they're at everywhere. They're at Targets and Walmarts. You can buy manga, unlike comics. So you can be like, oh, I'm going to go to Walmart and go pick up the new chapter for One Piece or something. And you can, like, read it through and even go back and be like, oh, okay, where did the show leave off? Because it's written almost to the T for these books. That you could just pick up where the show left off. And that's what happened with Invincible. That's why I got all these Invincible books. I didn't want to wait after season 1. So I started reading the omnibuses because they're so spot on to the TV shows. The only things they literally change or the things they legally have to change, where they can't put in some image characters due to contract things, so they have to put other people in, or they can't put Spider-Man in, so they put in a makeshift person.
They can't do one of my favorite team-ups of all time, which is Mark and Spider-Man.
Did you see the dude that edited it on YouTube? He
No, actually
animated over the scene in the same style, and since the voice actor for that scene is Spider-Man from the TV show, like the recent TV show, it's the same guy. It's spot on. It looks like a Spider-Man voice character. It looks like Spider-Man. Like, they changed nothing. But it's so hard to explain, but they literally like animated over it to be straight up Spider-Man. And it's so fucking cool.
That's really fascinating.
I'll send the video to you after this. It is so fucking cool. I sent it to my brother, and I was like, yeah, this is what happened in my head. Like, this is canon now. Like, what happened in the show was cool because, like, they mentioned the Spider-Verse. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool because now technically that guy's a part of the Spider-Man Spider-Verse. That's cool. But when I saw this, I was like, yeah, Spider-Man, that's cool. Like, it's what could have been if they got the rights to it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That would have been such a cool deal, too, if they were like, okay, you can have Spider-Man for this 1-minute scene that you're doing if we can do something with Invincible and Spider-Verse. Like, okay, go ahead. Do something with him.
God, that would have been so much fun.
Like, even if he pops up for a quick second. Like, if that's how, like, they changed the story from the comic book, I would have been okay with that. Like, they get sucked into another portal to the Spider-Verse. Like, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'd be perfectly okay with that. But I think that's why animation's so cool, because you could do cool shit like that. And when you do see it, it is cool because it is literally what you read, and you could see it come to life. So I think that was very, very cool that they did that in the show, or at least attempted to do it in the show. So I'm a big animated guy. I love animated shows and movies.
And think about it like this as well, Gabe. When you're casting for a live-action project, not only do you have to cast someone that you feel like sounds like the character, they have to look like the character. Whereas in an animated show, they only have to sound like the character.
Exactly. And I think, too, when, like, they do find someone that sounds like could play this character but looks different, people are going to be upset about that because it's not both. It's someone that if I read a book, all right, I can hear this person's voice, but they don't look like who I see, or they don't look like who I read in the books. So, like, it kind of throws you off a bit. And I think that also is, like, where if a character looks a certain way, and now you go to get their books, and you're like, this is a completely different dude. It's going to throw people off from wanting to read their books because it's not what they're seeing. If what they saw is what they liked, you know? That's the argument we had for Wonder Man. I think who they cast for Wonder Man's a perfectly fine actor, but say if someone watches that and watch it, hopefully it's amazing. Hopefully it's the greatest show they ever produced on Disney Plus, and we watch it and we're like, this is cool. He just reshapes what Wonder Man looks like and sounds like, but now I go to the bookstore and Wonder Man is this Brad Pitt model guy in the books, like actor type guy. It's not what he looks like in what he would look like in the show, so it kind of throws you off.
It's a strange contrast, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that could also put people off from wanting to read these books. So listen, I don't care when you change how people look for the things. If it's something that makes sense, go ahead and do it. Whatever. Would I like to have people look like how they look in the books? That's fine. Yeah, definitely, because I want to see what I read come to life. But I'm not gonna lose my mind on Twitter over it. But I think the great workaround for that is animation, where say if this person doesn't look like Professor X, but he sounds like Professor X.
Exactly.
If it's animated, who cares what you look like? No, I don't care what you look like. No one cares what you look like. It's animated. Just make the animation look good, you know? Like, freaking Timmy Turner wasn't even a boy. Like, no one knew. No one knew.
No one was none the wiser.
So,
or like one of my favorites, Keith David, when he voiced Spawn. I mean, Keith David couldn't really physically play Spawn in like a live action capacity, especially at that time. Like, he was probably well into like his late 40s at that time, mid 40s.
And that's another thing too. Like, if there is characters, if they're like old, but they still sound like a younger version of a character, it's so frustrating because now they can't play that like that. Now they're out of that role, you know? And I feel like people are frown upon animation still for some reason, and I don't understand why. Like, they see animation, they think kids, and I don't get it. I really don't. It's been proven time and time again that it's not just for kids. Like, I don't know what else needs to be done.
example, Gabe, is everyone for the longest time wants Jensen Ackles to play Red Hood in a live action capacity.
Yep.
The problem is that Jensen Ackles is already like in his mid to late 40s.
Yep. Which
So it would be hard to do that.
But he'd be a great Batman now.
He would be a great Batman.
He'd be a great Batman now.
I think, from what I understand, he's actually voicing Batman in the DC animated movies now.
Yes, which is very interesting because now, so this is the thing. So they did say that they wanted whoever was voicing characters in the animations to be who's playing them in live action. That's what James Gunn said. That's why if you look at any of the animated stuff they're doing, the people they're casting for the voices kind of look like the characters for that reason. Right. Which is cool because, like, say if they put them in an animated thing and now they show up in Superman or in a Batman movie and they sound the same, it's like, oh shit, it's connected, which I think is cool. That's a great way to connect your stuff. Yeah, exactly. And Marvel's been doing that with things like What If. They've done that with some of the voice actors, or they found people that sound like them, so it's, you know, in line, which I think is very cool. Yeah, no, I think that's a cool concept, and I'm hoping he plays Batman. That'd be very cool if he plays Batman. I'm not going to complain if he does.
I think it would be
something
really
I'd be very
cool
happy about. But Ajax, if we were to make an animated movie, it would be, or if I would love to see an animated Amalgam or Marvel vs. DC brought to life. How cool would that be? Seeing Marvel vs. DC come to life. We could see things like Spider-Boy come to life, characters like that. Characters like Darkclaw, you know, Doctor Strange, Fate, all those cool characters. But Ajax, I tasked us with something this week. I said, what if we made our own Amalgam characters? I was like, all right, if we were to make 5 heroes and 5 villains, did you come up with any that you were very intrigued by? I'm interested to see how similar some of ours are, if they are at all.
It's a very broad question. It's very hard to just
I tried to make it broad, so it wasn't like limited.
Hard as well? I feel like a lot of the best ones were already done.
Yeah.
That's what I find hard.
So I can give some examples of mine, if you'd like.
Go for it.
All right. So I also did something to accompany these, Ajax, because I was like, all right, I'm going to describe them to you. But I said, why not go the extra mile? So you know what I did? I created some trading cards of what my character designs would look like, based off of previously made Marvel and DC covers, made by actual amazing artists. What I did is I just redid them with my character designs as a fun way to pay homage to those other covers, with my custom characters. So, to start off here was the first one I made. The first character I thought of was called U.S. Lantern. It was an amalgam of Captain America and Green Lantern, but it is of John Stewart's Green Lantern. A Green Lantern I feel like that doesn't get as much recognition as he does. My reasoning for that was because Captain America, at the end of the day, is a family man. They really hammer that in with the books. He's a very humbled guy, and so is John Stewart. Like in the new books, John Stewart gives up being a Lantern to take care of his mother, who is older and sick, to live on her farm and help. He's basically like Clark, helping out with his grandmother, and I think that is a great combination of him and Captain America, but as a Lantern. And instead of the ring, it's his shield that has the Green Lantern powers in it.
I think that's a great idea. I love it.
And as you can see here, I did send you the design here. Are you able to view that?
Yes, I love it. I think that's a great pinup.
I did make another hero. This one's a woman, though. This one's a woman. Her name is Serene, and she's an amalgam of 2 female characters I love, of Rogue and Wonder Woman combined into one character. The absorbing power still of Rogue, but has that brute strength naturally. She's still an Amazonian, but she's an Amazonian that can steal your powers.
Jesus, what an OP character.
Very OP. But she still has, the same weakness of, if she touches you for too long, it could fuck her up still, just like Rogue. You still got to have some weaknesses there. She's not invincible unless she touches someone like a Superman-type person, where she momentarily has their powers, so she could still be, like, shot by a gun, She doesn't have gauntlets to protect her, so she does have her lasso, if she's tactical enough, she go slap him away. You know. This was a fun one. This is what I thought of. And I was only because I wanted to include both of these characters somehow, so I just combined them into one. And drawing this image was frustrating because of the character it was based off of, or the art it was based off of. Okay. This is a character called Darkcrawler, and is Batman and Nightcrawler. But the art for this was frustrating because I'm trying to recreate Frank Miller's Batman art.
The Frank Miller pose, yeah.
Dude, his art, when you break it down, it is the most unnatural anatomy ever. Like, there is weird lines that just don't need to be there, but when he does it, it looks fine. But if you try to recreate it and you're not a top-tier professional like him, it looks, like, weird why certain stuff is there. So, like, the entire, like, I had to, like, make it so he only has 4 fingers because Nightcrawler doesn't have a full set of 5 fingers, you know? So I put 4 fingers on this guy. He does have, you know, the BAMF effect happening there, so he can do that. So he does have powers, but he does have the cool utility belt as Batman. A lot of these I didn't flesh out their powers and weaknesses. I just was like, who would look cool? What hasn't been done before? And I think a Nightcrawler Batman could look cool in the shadows, you know? And I did keep, by the way, people listening to this will be on our Twitter, these images, so you can look at them. I did keep the Nightcrawler design for the costume, as you can see. I've liked the bright, vibrant colors of the costume, so I kept that for sure. By the way, I did make these Ajax in a size where I can actually get these printed as cards. And because technically they are original characters,
can't get sued for it.
Can't get sued for it. These are original characters. By the way, these all have that custom-made Amalgam Comics logo I made, too, of the current Marvel and DC font. So it's very unique. This next one was fun to make. It was probably my favorite drawing to do. This is my 4th of my 5 heroes, and it is called the Red Surfer. I mix it together. It's Superman and Silver Surfer mixed together. A cosmic alien from another planet, thwarting Galactus-type people from destroying planets. I thought was a cool concept. And, yeah, the Superman logo on the surfboard was probably the main reason I wanted to draw this. And I kind of was drawing this, and I'm like, this kind of just looks like the Red Superman from the 90s when I was drawing him. But with the cape and all that. But I wanted to keep that surfer look. So he still has, like, the full chrome head, the chrome dome head, and he's got the little swirl still, you know, the little chrome swirl. And I wanted to call him Red Surfer because I mixed it with, like, I don't know if you remember Smallville. They called him like the Red Blur, or the Blur he was. Yeah. So I wanted to mix that, but like with red, so kind of like the red streak kind of thing they did in Flash, also, you know, because that's how I imagined him flying through space with like a giant red streak behind him, like an airplane. But you know, that I feel like that was a cool idea. The next one, which is my last hero, was a fan service one, 100%. It is the husband to our Serene character, my favorite character, Ruse. It's a mix of my 2 favorites, man. It's one that I'm pissed Amalgam didn't do. A mix of Gambit and Nightwing. How has this not been done? It's my 2 favorite character, my 2 number 1s of both companies. This was mostly just for myself. But also, in the Marvel vs. DC books, they were fighting each other when the worlds collided. So why didn't they turn into the same character? Like, when the worlds collided, only some of the people fighting each other turned into the same character. Like, Wonder Woman and Storm did, but Batman and Captain America were together. They didn't form. Yeah. Instead, it was Captain America and Superman, and Batman and Wolverine, and Nightcrawler and, I think it was Nightcrawler and, God, I forgot who it was. They mixed, like, Nightcrawler and Gambit with someone else, and I was like, what's going on? But, and of course, you gotta make him you gotta give his Rogue as his girl, you know what I mean? He still has the Gambit powers, but the athleticism and backstory of Nightwing, you know, working in the circus. Those were his circus tricks, you know, doing acrobats and charging shit up and making them explode. And the costume is just basically Nightwing with the Gambit color scheme, you know?
I'm sure Nightwing would love to live in a world where he's going out with Wonder Woman.
You know, right? So, those are the heroes. I do have villains, but Ajax, did you have any heroes that you created before we move on to the villains?
I can't compete with that. I didn't make cards and names.
You didn't
and all
have to
that.
do
Yeah,
that.
I can't compete with that.
I did the cards mostly because I was like, I thought of all these and I was like, I'm bored. I don't know what to draw. So then I started drawing the U.S. Lantern first, and I was just like, oh, this is kind of cool if I make these. So then after that, I made like the card packaging, like design around it and stuff, and I went from there.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I really dig it.
But I do have some villains. I have my 5 villains. These were the last ones I drew. I actually just drew these the other day. Like last week I drew. Some of them were cool concepts. A lot of them were for myself too. So there was one, which is I made a villain for all the heroes. So each hero I just listed has a corresponding villain. That's how
Nice.
that's how I booked this. So I'm like, all right, if I'm making a U.S. Lantern book, who's going to be his villain? If Green Lantern and Captain America needed a villain, it can only be the Red Construct, which is a mix of Sinestro and Red Skull.
Oh, okay.
I was like, that has to be his villain, you know? Come
Yeah.
on now. It's just 2 of the most vile villains in Marvel and DC history, I would say. Mix them together. And I think it was a cool little design I put together. The costumes are very similar on purpose because that's how it is with the Lanterns. All their costumes are very similar.
Right.
Then I also was looking at Serene. I was like, she needs a cool villain. You know, Rogue and Wonder Woman don't have a lot of villains that go up against, but I did choose two villains who I believe are synonymous with those 2 characters, and I mixed Cheetah and Mystique to make Mutate.
Yeah. Oh.
Mix them together. So that would be the villain of Serene, Rogue and Wonder Woman. She has the Cheetah, print still on her, but she's rocking the Mystique skin and the Mystique similar costume. But still has like the Cheetah orange hair, the Cheetah eyes, all that stuff mixed together.
Yeah, I think that works.
That was another fun one to make. That one took a little bit to make because I was making her face kind of wonky and I didn't like it. So looking at Darkcrawler here, this was a no-brainer of who I was gonna make as their villain. I already knew Joker was gonna be implemented in this. It has to be because it's Batman. And I was like, who do I pull from a Nightcrawler villain? I was like, Nightcrawler. So I reached into my little bag of X-Men villains, and I made probably my favorite villain design. Even I sent it to Drew, and he was like, that's my favorite one. And it's this one here called Jest. It is the Joker and Mr. Sinister.
Oh.
Which I thought of, and then I was like, that's kind of a no-brainer. They look similar,
Yeah,
but it's like if Joker had that same like sense of humor, but wasn't as unplanned as the Joker. If he was more methodical, like Mr. Sinister.
More calculating.
Yeah, more calculated. You see, he's got the little wine glass. He's a very proper man. He's not a complete psychopath. He does what he does for a reason. So that was another little fun one to make. This was probably my favorite villain design to come together. This was actually the last one I drew when I was making these villains. So I was very, very happy with that. Looking at our next hero here, we had Red Surfer. So this was another one where I was like, all right, I need something big. And I wanted to include one specific Marvel character only because I looked at this from the scope of modern and classic characters. And one of the modern characters in the past couple years that's blown me away, which I know you're going to be a fan of, I wanted to include him. And this villain from Marvel was Hyperion, and I wanted to include him somehow in this. And I know I was like, the original idea was Hyperion and Superman and making him like an anti-hero. But then I was like, nah, that's too easy. So I needed a villain for my Superman, my Red Surfer. So I combined Hyperion and Darkseid to create this character called Dark Alva. And I looked it up. Alva stands for, it has a meaning when I found this. It stands for His Highness or Sublime. So it's like an old Hebrew word. So it's kind of like he's very much like a dark side apocalypse type guy. But I mixed him with Hyperion, so he has like Superman-esque like powers to him. Qualities,
okay,
yeah.
Qualities, yeah.
But as you can see, he has a similar Hyperion look with the short sleeve shirt. The skin color, the hair are straight up Hyperion, but he has the dark side like facial structure, the boots, all that, the cosmic portion. It's all dark side.
Right.
I mostly wanted a reason to draw a Hyperion type character because I think Hyperion's very underrated and needs to be recognized.
Shout
more.
out Squadron Supreme, man. We love
Shout out Squadron Supreme.
Here.
That's why I wanted to get him included in this. I think that was very cool. So, and I was trying to make these where it was stuff that you would never expect, and I think stuff that could have story behind it. You know what I mean? If I was a writer, who would I want to write for if I was to be in the writing room?
I'll tell you what, if they bring back Amalgam, they would definitely do Power Princess and Wonder Woman now.
Yes, they would. They would do all of the new Squadron Supreme, just mix it with their DC characters, and they'd be the bad guys.
Yeah.
And the last one was another fan service one, because I was like, all right, my last character was a fan service one for myself. You know, Gambit and Nightwing. So I wanted to take two characters from Marvel and DC that I enjoy, and it was a combination. By the way, this character is called Symbiont. It's a mixture of Venom and Azrael.
Oh, wow.
And that's the design I came up with was something straight out of a 90s Image comic character design. Like, if you take the Symbiote logo off his belt, this could be pitched as a 90s comic book right now, I believe. If I was to go back in time, this would have sold some copies. I can tell you that. If he would have been a crazy Spawn villain.
Wait, hold up. Is that Todd McFarlane calling? Yes, Gabe, I'm very interested in Symbiote. Can he be in Spawn issue 22?
I'm gonna give him the okay that he's gonna change the A to an E in Symbiont so we can use him going forward for toys. Just like he did with Liefeld.
We can't do overkill. We have to do overkill.
So he'll be Symbiont with an E. But yeah, this was a fun one to make because it was just, I was like, Azrael with a symbiote? Yeah, that's fucking cool. That was my thought process going into all of these. What would I think would be cool? Because that was a big complaint with people with these Amalgam books were like, that's kind of lame. Those kind of don't make sense. So I kind of wanted to mix people that made sense, you know? Like Rogue and Wonder Woman, two very strong women that can kick anyone's ass. Gambit, Nightwing, two fan-favorite characters, even if it's not me. Those are two fan-favorite characters. I put together Silver Surfer, Superman, both space-type things. Nightcrawler and Batman, both very dark, could be gritty. You can even incorporate the Nightcrawler like religious aspect to him if you wanted, which I think would be a cool thing to throw in there with Batman. So, you know, I wanted to mix that and make them all kind of make sense. As you can see, I love Amalgam. So that's why I went through the process of all this.
I love all of these, but I love how ambitious Symbiont is. It's very ambitious, and I love it.
Yes. It's for people that are curious. You can't see on Twitter, but it's Azrael with his giant sword, his hood, his giant shoulder pads. You know, the knife gauntlet, which I didn't have taken out. I wanted to do that and then put like symbiote around it, but I was like, that's a lot of work, so I'll wait. So I put it around the sword, where it's like forming around the sword, which I thought was cool instead of like fire that Azrael has. I decided to do it where it was that. And of course I get the symbiote coming out of his back too, going forward. So I was trying to do the tongue and I couldn't do it properly. So I just canned that and just put the evil Venom smile on it. I was only doing what I was able to do. Because again, I'm not a professional artist. So
no, but I think you do a good job anyways, Gabe.
And thank you so much. And when I post these on Twitter, I am going to put the original images for the original artists that I based these off of. Because again, none of these are original, 100% original sketches. The designs are original. The characters are original, but the art are taken from some amazing artists. And I did that on purpose because I thought it'd be a cool contrast of what really came out and what could be, you know? Like, I feel like that would be what the covers would be, like paying homage to the actual covers, but of those characters, you know? I think those would sell like hotcakes if you resell some... Like, if you have like your X-Men team and you remake that Jim Lee cover from X-Men 1, but with your Amalgam characters, that's how you make some fucking money right there, you know?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Making comic books is not hard, guys. Promoting your comic books is not hard. There's a reason why independent comics are doing so well. It's because it's not brain science to make things fun for people. And if you don't finish
your comic books, we're going to be waiting outside your door while you're doing those sketches.
We're watching you, Jim. Speaking of Jim, dude, he made that amazing brand new wraparound cover for the the Amalgam Omnibus that's coming out in August. That's mostly why we did this, because I'm looking forward to that Omnibus coming out. Jim Lee did draw the wraparound cover for it. Brand new art of him drawing these characters, and it is as insanely amazing as you are imagining in your head. You can view it online. It's just out of this world from the sketches he put. Dude, amazing. Like, it is amazing. So it is every Amalgam character on one cover.
Jim Lee's going to be like 80 years old and put out like one piece of like commissioned artwork a year, and you're still going to be like, holy shit, that's better than like anyone else.
Dude, he like he was trending on Twitter the other day because he put up a drawing of Goku on Instagram, and everyone was losing their fucking minds over it because they loved it. Like, they were like losing their minds over it. They're like, oh, Jim Lee's drawing Goku. I loved it because the eyes were they were like the anime eyes, like no detail. But of course, the clothes and all the folds were just like uber detailed and like super shadowed. It was great. I loved it. It was so cool. I would buy that up in a heartbeat. Would you buy these books, Ajax?
I would.
Say the right answer.
Absolutely.
That's another thing, too. I was going for a cool factor. Like, I was sending these to Drew, and I was like, what do you think? And he was like, oh, maybe mess with this. And I messed with it. He's like, yeah, that was it. Because I was like, all right, I want some, like, but I don't want to spoil them for you. You know what I mean? Because I know we're going to be doing this. So I was like, all right, I need another pair of eyes to look at these and give me the okay if these are good or not. Because before, Red Surfer was actually all silver. And he was like, no, make them red. And then I changed the name. Because it would look different.
It's always good to have an honest brother. Am I right?
Exactly. Drew, he'll be here. Hey, Drew will be here on the next episode.
I'm looking forward to that.
It's gonna be a fun one.
I'm very looking forward to that. I always like having Drew on the podcast.
No, it's gonna be a fun one. We'll talk about what that's gonna be in a little bit. But before we get into what it will be happening next month, Ajax, we do have to go over a little fun thing here. Something we like to call This Month in Wizard Magazine. In this month, we got Wizard number 93 from May 1999, the last May of the 90s, and some beautiful Joe Mad art. Joe Mad art of Wonder Woman. It's the whole Trinity here on the cover. That is the variant cover I own, and it's probably the best one that they made for this issue. They have 3 different covers, and this is the one that I chose. Beautiful cover, though. We're gonna look at
seeing Joe Mad and McGinnis drawing Superman like super.
Dude, so buff. Good. It's amazing, and like the giant jaw on like Batman that makes him look like that menacing scowl, and of course Wonder Woman is just like it's out of this world. Like it is amazing.
Joe draws really good women as well. I find.
Yeah, it's like some of the best, I would say. So we are gonna be looking at something, Ajax, we haven't looked at since our first ever episode. 14 months ago, we looked at a little thing called Top 10 Heroes and Villains, where we looked in detail about the month before, what they were selling at this time. If we were in this time frame, what was happening around that time? So we're going to send this to you here, Ajax. Number 1 on this list is Batman, coming in at the top of this list. And I like looking at these also from the scope of current day of what's popular nowadays. And a lot of these kind of are. I'd say of the 10, maybe about 1, 2, 3,
oh, Gabe,
4, 5 are.
Did you give out the year that the issue was?
Yes. May 1999.
Okay.
Issue number 93. Gotcha. For people that want to look through it. Batman is number 1 at this time. Batman number 566 from April of the month before. Just barely made top 30. It was only number 29 of the month. And it sold only an estimated 51,935 units. And that's only for the Batman titled book. So he also had 10 running titles at the time. So that also, I learned going through these numbers that will do a number on your book units. Because now you have all these multiple titles for one character. And everyone either wants them all, or people just don't care about the other 9. So they're not going to buy them because it's too much.
I'm guessing he bounces back strong now. Like in 99, because No Man's Land was a very big Batman event at the time.
And actually, in this Wizard, if I am correct, yes, there's a survey here. What should happen to Gotham City? This is after Gotham City got destroyed. They're asking the Wizard readers, what should happen when it's rebuilt? And everyone said just rebuild and reunite with the U.S. Second place was don't rebuild, but reunite with the U.S., which I don't get. And then number 3 and third place, leave a wasteland. and then other was the other option. But he also had things like Detective Comics going at this time. But honestly, the best-selling Batman book of April is going to make you laugh. It was a crossover book with Darkness that was going on at this time that sold over the issues of Batman, selling an estimated 73,784 units. It was making some money. And it was selling more than Batman. And you'll learn this list, man. Image Comics, like the independent publishers, were blowing Marvel and DC out of the water for the most part in this. So you'll notice that.
They were, and anytime Image would cross over, because Batman crossed over with Spawn, he crossed over with Darkness. Whenever he would do that, though, like, they would sell.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, it's funny to say it, but I think it was because of those Image guys that they would put with those books, because Image was so hot. Yeah. It was a cool thing to see. So, yeah, especially when you're getting like Image artists drawing Batman stuff again, that was cool. I think that was really, really fun. Especially you're getting McFarlane doing Batman stuff again. That was badass. Number 2 on this list, Wolverine. So Wolverine was interesting. He was the number 6 book of April, selling about 88,477 units. By the way, thank you comiccron.com for all these numbers. They document every month in comics and history. There's some months that are missing. They're trying to fill the holes. Before they switched to Diamond to publish their books and distribute their books, they went off of like order numbers, so it was a little bit like weird looking at some of the numbers, but at this point it was units being sold, so it's a lot easier to keep track of. But he sold a good amount, man. 88,000 units. He was also a part of the number 1 selling book of the month, which is Uncanny X-Men number 369, which sold a whopping 129,900 units at the time. This was a very high-selling book. Even in 1999, when X-Men maybe wasn't doing as good as it was when Claremont was on, but it was still selling a whopping amount of books.
A lot of creators nowadays would kill to reach that figure.
Oh my god, yeah, dude. People, it's an all-time bestseller if they reach 100,000 now. Like I believe Black Panther did that, and in Ultimate Spider-Man, and it like broke the internet. Because they were like, oh, comics are back, baby! And then, like, half of them bought issue 2. I mean, I stuck with them. They're all great. But
you know what the common denominator is? It's first issue. First issues are always going to sell.
Yep. And I think a big thing at this time, too, because, again, this is 99. What I'm about to say was around, but definitely not as prevalent now. But also the rise, I think, of digital books, too, has really stifled those numbers where people are able to put on their pirate hat and find some issues for what they want to read. You know what I mean? Because honestly, some books nowadays not worth that $5 price tag. So I get where people are coming from. And books are they're not dollar books anymore. They're not 99-cent, $1.25 anymore. They're a commitment. Sometimes they're $10 a book. Like it's a commitment now.
In 99, I would assume comic book piracy was in its infancy.
Yeah.
I would assume people are already starting to like rip stuff uploaded on the internet, so on and so forth. But probably, like I said, in its infancy, where I don't think a lot of people were doing it.
Yeah, I mean, even at this time too, you still had dial-up. If you're gonna read a book online, the time you have to wait for that to download, just go to the store and pay the $1, get the book, and then go home and read it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, the next one, number 3, is Spawn. So this is a character I feel like is still very popular in pop culture today. I think Spawn is still a historical, amazing character, but I feel like Spawn's not where he used to be. Why is that?
Oh, not even close.
I'm not sure why. Oh, I got hiccups. I'm not sure why Spawn isn't where he is. What are your theories?
My main theory is because Todd stuck too long to writing Spawn.
I can see that being the reason.
Like Todd should have handed him off. And he did a couple of points where, Alan Moore came in to write Spawn.
It was like those one-offs, wasn't it? Like each issue was like a...
Frank Miller came to write Spawn for a little bit. Neil Gaiman came in to write Spawn for a little bit.
Amazing writers.
Dave Sim, who wrote Cerberus, he came in to write Spawn. So, like, he would, hire writers, like, on a work-for-hire basis, but they would only do, like, 3 to 4 issues at a time.
Yeah.
He never really like brought in guys for like a big, like, let's say 50 issue run, 100 issue run. Because Spawn's already at like well over 300 issues at this point.
Yep. Yeah. So at this point, so in 1999, they were only at issue 85. But even then, at 99, being at issue 85 of Spawn, that's a lot of Spawn books, you know. And I also got to give them credit, man. Spawn did sell. It was the number 4 book of the month in April of 1999. It sold almost 100,000 units. It was about 97,000 that it sold, estimated. It was actually behind. It was only behind 2 X titles and 1 independent book, which I think might blow your mind of being above Spawn, and it was Battle Chasers. Joe Mad's Battle Chasers was above Spawn April of 1999, outselling Spawn and knocking it down to number 4. If that wasn't there, Spawn would have been number 3. It would have been outselling. It would have only been outsold by X-Men. But Battle Chasers really cool, is there.
Because I always saw Battle Chasers as like a cult classic book, so I didn't realize it sold that well.
Yeah, I didn't either. When I saw that on the list, I had to like double check. I was like, "Is this the Battle Chasers I'm thinking about? Like, is this the Battle Chasers?" And yeah, it's Joe Mad's Battle Chasers. Like, holy crap! That needs to be an animated TV show.
It definitely does. My other theory with Spawn is, in '99, especially at that time, oversaturation. So you had Spawn, you had Curse of the Spawn, you had Sam and Twitch.
Yep.
Which Bendis was writing that.
Yep.
And then you had, I think, Medieval Spawn.
And I would say, even nowadays, that hasn't changed. Because now there's a Spawn universe that they have now.
Yeah, but like even back then, it just felt like so much.
Yeah. Yeah, because even nowadays, we got Spawn, we got Rat City that just came out. Sam and Twitch is back. They're getting their book again. We got, I think, Curse of Spawn still a thing still?
I don't think so, no.
What's the one with the female Spawn?
Scorched. But that's like a team-up book.
Yeah.
Like a team-up book.
So, I think it's a good variety. I wish I jumped on Scorch when it started. I'm going to be honest, because I was at the shop holding number 1 when it released. Fun. And I was like, do I get it? And then I left it. And then by the time I was like, yeah, I'm going to jump onto it, it was on issue like 20 already. And I was like, okay, I think it's a little late for me to jump in and rebuy all of these. I'm going to have to get the trade paperbacks to make up for it eventually. Because I do want to own them physically. But at this time, Spawn
want to get into Scorched, and I want to get into King Spawn as well.
I want to get into Rat City.
Yeah.
That just came out. That's only in issue 2. And it's literally, it was pushed as Spawn 2099. And I was like, that's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear.
Interesting.
Yeah, futuristic Spawn, and it's cool because like the character's like a cybernetic looking Spawn holding onto a building in like a cyberpunk city, and I was like, that's fucking cool. That is everything I love. That is very cool. So I do have to check that out. I'll probably scoop that up this weekend also when I go to pick up some Image books. I'm gonna probably see if I can find Rat City 1 and 2. Now that I'm talking about it, I want to read it now.
But yeah, Spawn in '99 is still in a good spot.
Yeah,
but
it's a little sour from the movie.
Yeah, but you'll notice that like as soon as the 21st century starts, the sales figures dip.
And by that point too, Todd's kind of focused more on his toys than anything, his toys and statues at that point, because he's selling some amazing stuff in the early 2000s.
And you could argue that's probably another reason why Spawn maybe isn't as strong as it could be.
Yeah.
Or it could have been.
Because he's being pulled in a million different directions. Man, and that oversaturation also spills into his toys, too. There's so many Spawn figures. Every time I go to the store, there's a different looking Spawn at the store. And I'm like, can I just get the OG Spawn as a toy, please? Like, what is
and it's like you can't.
So bad about that?
You can't find the original one.
I can only get the second suit with the big boot. And I'm like, I don't want the big boot. I want the first Spawn with no crazy frilly shit on him. I want, like, the red gloves. Like, just give me that. Like, that's all I want. So I did find out, I think they did sell it as like a con exclusive, which means he'll never fucking sell it again. But no, he did say, he goes, we're gonna get the old Spawn. We're gonna get the old Spawn figure. And it's the concept Spawn art from when he drew it at a con before Spawn was created. And go
like
figure,
1988.
It comes with a 2-pack of Todd McFarlane as well. He made a toy of himself to go with it. I would have bought that Todd if it was 90s Todd with the mullet. I would have bought that. Like that image created, you know, like the image picture with all the OGs. If it was that Todd McFarlane, I would have bought it because that would have been cool. But no, it's current current Todd McFarlane wearing a Spawn t-shirt, Spawn hat. Like, dude. Come on. I did find it online for a decent price, and I was like, I don't need it, but should I get it? Just to have it. Number 4 on this list, though, as we go on here, is actually a character that's getting rebooted soon, Ajax. Getting a new series.
Indeed.
Witchblade from Top Cal. So at this time in 1999, both Witchblade and Tales of Witchblade were concurrently running. So there was 2 series going on for her, which is why I noticed that number. Because remember, Witchblade was selling over 100,000 copies for a while. And now that there's 2 series,
it was a very hot
split.
property.
It was split at this time. So Witchblade, at this time, was making an estimated 57,000 units for the month of April. And remember, this is for the month. This isn't like for the total run of a book. This is just for what was pre-ordered and purchased for the month of April. So remember, that's a lot. That's a lot of people. And Tales of Witchblade was actually very close with 45,000. So they're both very popular books. They were selling just as much as Batman was selling, which is crazy. Because Batman was selling 51. They were right behind. Actually, no. Witchblade was selling more than Batman in April. They were selling 57. So they were selling 6,000 more books than Batman at this time to paint that picture. Yeah. So even Spawn and Battle Chasers were outselling Batman in Detective Comics and Superman and JLA. They were outselling all of that. Crazy.
And this is late 99, you said?
Yes. So like middle May 1999.
So this
April.
is exactly, I want to say,
beginning
like
of quarter 2.
year. This is a year before she gets the live action show on TNT.
Yep. So you can see her star is still rising. Number 5 on this list is an interesting one, Ajax. Let me get this sent over to you. It's a character I didn't expect to see on this list, actually. It's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Not the TV show, the comic by Dark Horse. She actually not only had 1, but 2 titles in April of 1999, and a 3rd one that was soon to debut in May. And the estimated total of these 2 titles in April sold a total of about 77,093 units in April combined. One of them sold like 30-something, the other one sold like 40-something. But still, that's pretty good for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I mean, I get it, though, because, like, this is the first season, right? So, like, Buffy fever is, like, in effect.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And that 77,000, that number would increase in May. So what is soon to come would increase by a couple thousand. So what people were reading, they were liking and going to the store and buying it again. Maybe it helps that the book that was being sold in May was a book about Spike. Everyone loves Spike. I love Spike. You love Spike. Your grandparents love Spike. Everyone loves him. He's everyone's favorite, and that's probably why that book sold a good amount too. So just a good title, good characters, and it was the number 5 of Wizards' top 10 heroes. Number 6 goes to our old friend Peter. Spider-Man was number 5 on this list. At this time, he had 5 Spider-Man titles, 2 mangas that were sold in the month of April, an Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man, and Spider-Man Chapter 1 were all top 30 books for the month. So that's amazing. They're all top 30. And with all of that, though, even at the end of the year, Amazing Spider-Man would only reach number 80 for the year. It, like, didn't even make top 50 for the year. So even though it was selling so well this month, it wasn't in the grand scope of comic books, was not selling as great as other titles.
You know what it is, Gabe? I feel like the end of the 90s, Spider-Man was kind of at a creative low point.
Yeah, because May 99, I believe we're just wrapping up Clone Saga, or I think we're still in it.
No, they wrapped it up.
They wrapped it up? Okay.
99. Yeah, they definitely wrapped it up by 99.
So, yeah. But remember, like...
people are still, like, reeling from it. They're like, man, it went on forever.
And they have, like, that sour taste in their mouth when it comes to that. And it also doesn't help you got 5 different titles going, which I get the idea behind that. It's like, all right, there's a title for everyone. If you don't like this, maybe you'll like this one. Which is, I get, like, the model for it, but I think it is harder for people to get into if there's 5 different Spider-Man titles. 2 of them were labeled Amazing Spider-Man. So it's like... Why do they have the same name and different numbers?
I'm not sure if it came out in 99, but there is a Spider-Man book. It's an anthology book. I think it's called Tales of Spider-Man or maybe Web of Spider-Man, something like that.
I think it's Tales of Spider-Man, and I think it came out in 99 because it did show up in the graphic novel section.
Gotcha. So the premise of it, for those who like haven't read it, it's an anthology book. It doesn't necessarily focus on Spider-Man, but it focuses on Spider-Man characters.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's like these little like one-shot stories of like, let's say, Kingpin or Rhino,
Yep.
or so on and so forth. So I always found that fascinating, where it's like it's a Spider-Man book, but it's not really a Spider-Man book.
Yeah.
It gives the spotlight to like his surrounding cast, I guess.
Well, they actually did that recently too. If people like the sound of that, they just did Web of Spider-Man with a beautiful cover by Greg Capullo drawing Spider-Man, which is basically like a modern day Todd McFarlane Spider-Man. It looks fucking amazing. But it has each short story in there has a different artist and writing team of a little short story. And I think there's about 4 or 5 in there, but it has artists like Ed McGuinness drawing for them. Of course, John Romita Jr. drawing for them as expected because he's currently working on their other titles. But a couple different artists that they brought onto this, and they do their own little mini stories. So they did bring that concept back recently, Ajax.
I think it's a concept that I always find intriguing.
Yeah.
To just do constantly short stories because it doesn't bog you down.
Yeah, and I like the way this one was done. What it did was it was kind of like a promotional ad. So each mini story at the end was like, if you want to see what happens next, check out this book. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So it's kind of like what we talked about the movie thing. You read that, and hopefully if you like it enough, you're like, oh, I want to see where that goes. And maybe you'll go and pick up the other ones. Maybe that's a new thing you add to your pull list. I like that. I like when people cross-promote and do that kind of stuff because then it raises awareness to series I didn't know about. Like when I was reading the book. I think the most disappointing part of it, I was reading the book. I read through all the stories, and I was like, I was promised Ed McGuinness. Where the hell's Ed McGuinness in this book? Where is his art? And I found it. He just completely changed his art. It doesn't look like what you think Ed McGuinness art looks like from the 2000s. It's very modernized, which made me a little upset. There was some line work where I was like, oh, I could kind of see it there, but it's not what I was expecting from Ed McGuinness, so it made me a little upset as a big Ed McGuinness fan, but it was still beautiful nonetheless. The art was amazing with like the digital coloring and all that added onto it. So, yeah, definitely check out Web of Spider-Man. It was very cool as a little one-shot for everyone. Plus, like I said, even if you don't want to read it, you get a beautiful Greg Capullo cover of Spider-Man, which unheard of. So definitely go get that. Not a paid ad.
Greg Capullo is fucking awesome. I love Greg Capullo on Spawn.
This August, he's working on a miniseries for Wolverine, and I'm like, oh yeah.
I saw that.
They released the cover,
really good on that.
and I was like, oh, that looks so great. And he's doing the art on the inside. I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. This is what I've been waiting for. Because when they signed him on with a promise of you can do a Wolverine project. So this was like this is what he wanted. So that's why I'm excited. Because he's excited
really
for
do interiors like that.
No,
anymore.
ever since Batman, he stopped. His thing was like if he was to draw for anyone, it would be a Scott Snyder book, and that was his thing. Like anyone that wasn't Scott Snyder that wanted him to draw, he just wouldn't do it. He would do covers, but he wasn't drawing if it wasn't him because they were just like they were the dream team. When it came to Batman, especially at that time.
I mean, they were that new 52 run was awesome.
And Scott is behind not the reboot, or maybe reboot that's still up in the air now of that Ultimate DC series that they're starting, where it's basically the Ultimate Universe but for DC, where they are doing what the Ultimate Universe did, changing some things here or there to freshen up some of their characters, which I'm actually very excited for. I think that's a very needed thing with DC, so I'm intrigued to see how they do it.
But
I am upset.
I assumed that's what they were doing with Earth 1.
So I'm upset, and I'm upset that they're ending Dawn of DC. That's coming to an end with Absolute Power this summer. So I am a little heartbroken because I'm banking everything on that Ultimate Universe to be good. Because if it's not, I'm gonna be upset because DC is what I buy the most. Because Dawn of DC is so, it's just down to the basics. Like if you know about this character, we don't need to give you any backstory. You know about them already. Just read this, you know? What you think about the character. If you think about them a certain way, that's how they're written. So that's why I liked it. It was no like frilly edginess that we got with some of the new 52 stuff and things like that. It was just superheroes being superheroes, and I liked it. It was very old school feeling. So that's why I was really enjoying it. We'll see what happens. Let's hope it's a good time. I'm hoping it is. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I have always have been. Too. So I'm very excited. Plus, with Snyder behind it, I'm hopeful, because I loved all of his stuff with Batman. So maybe him at the helm, it's a good sign. We'll see.
And DC, if you're listening to me, because you're making an Authority movie,
Yes.
bring it back.
Yes,
Bring it
dude.
back.
Please do. Please do. Well, no, I think what's cool about this is, this is your time to, really change up some teams and have it where it, oh, that doesn't make sense with their lore. If you want to have fucking Beast Boy on the Justice League now, you can. You could just do it if you want. Mostly because Beast Boy's been a main focus a lot of Dawn of DC, that's why I brought him up. But if you want to do something like that, you can now. If you want to put in some weird, obscure characters and put them on, the Teen Titans or something like that, this is your time to do that. Or mix things up with Batman's lore and give him some new love interest and really change it all up and make it make sense. So I like that, and I like that it's a starting off point for new readers. Because I think that's huge, where people can jump onto it, and of course all the collectors can get their new number ones. But because I'll be doing that. But and I'm also reading every week, so I'm excited because Drew's been getting into books a lot more recently. He's always been in the books, but we've actually been going to shops a lot together recently. He's been stocking up on X-Men stuff, vintage, and he's excited for what's coming of the new X-Men reboot. So I think cool things like that where you reboot and give it a fresh take. Yeah, where you give it a fresh take for people that can jump in and get excited about it. We're getting a Dazzler book. I don't know if I'll check out issue 1. So I'm gonna see what that's about.
I like the sounds of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. I hope it's a fun one. But as we wind down here, our last 3 on this list. Number 7 is Fathom. Of course, Fathom. Great book.
That one is very surprising to me.
Number 7 on this list. It is. Yeah, it was his pet project when he was doing the art for this. Man, I was looking through this and I was trying to find what came out recently at this time for them. There was one book that came out in April. And it didn't sell as well as I thought it did, especially for the type of book it was. It was the Fathom Swimsuit Edition. And swimsuit editions sold bonker numbers when they came out. My guess is because Fathom is basically a swimsuit issue every book. That's my guess.
But also the swimsuit issues were very much a trope of the 90s, I guess. Everyone had to do a swimsuit issue.
But I will say, the swimsuit issue sold 53,000 units. It outsold Batman.
It's not terrible.
Still outsold Batman. And like I said, I thought it would be a lot higher. For all the gooners that were buying comics at the time. I know I would about that.
I will say this about Fathom. Fathom is something I've always wanted to read. Mm-hmm. But I've only wanted to read the stuff that Michael Turner was directly involved with.
Fathom is still going to this. There's still books that come out for it. But since he's not on it, it's I do like, though, the cover in big letters. It says Michael Turner's Fathom. It's a big, they don't try to hide him from it. It's right on top of the logo. It's a part of the logo. So I do like that. But yeah, this was his pet project because he was a surfing guy. So this is what he loved. So which is why I like that.
Yeah, and Michael Turner's one of my all-time favorites. So I've always felt like I owe it to him to read Fathom.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, it's something I did buy issue 1. I found issue 1 in the wild, and I was like, let's go, and I bought it. I bought it for $4. Very happy about that. So it is something I do want to collect over time and try to read his run of it before he passed. Number 8 on this list is Magneto, who currently is a very highly talked about individual from X-Men 97. At the time, he had Magneto Rex going. It was issue number 2 at this time. Sold actually very high. It was the number 1 issue in May when it came out. And then when issue 2 came out, it sold 2,000 more units than the month before, selling about 72,247 units for a Magneto book. That is huge for a Magneto book. Because you would think Magneto wouldn't sell that much, because he's a villain, whatever, his own individual series. But, dude, he was selling like crazy. He was riding high at this time.
But he might be one of the most, beloved or popular villains
of all time.
History.
Yeah, so it's also not, shocking or surprising. Number 9, Daredevil was on this list. Someone that is getting a lot of talk now with the Daredevil show, getting some teasers and some images being leaked. Nowadays, is a very highly talked about person.
kind of fascinating because like 99, I'm thinking, is it because of Guardian Devil with Kevin Smith?
It could have been. It could have been.
Which is a very good Daredevil book.
And at this point, he did have his ongoing series. It was ranked number 9 of the month, top 10 selling book. Sold an estimated 86,046 units. Dude, that is more than what like I said, Batman outselling Batman. Not selling as much as X-Men, but almost there, outselling Buffy's total number. Like all of the Image stuff, it was basically outselling. So like Daredevil was very popular in '99, and it could very well be due to that. I didn't even think of that when I was looking at this list.
Could be due to that. Also, just the fact that like Daredevil was the poster boy for the Marvel Knights brand.
Yeah, and I would
say
that
was a very popular imprint for Marvel.
And even nowadays, Daredevil's books are probably one of my favorites that are being put up by Marvel. I think Daredevil is probably one of the most underrated heroes, legitimately in Marvel, because whenever you bring up Daredevil, no one really dislikes Daredevil that I've seen. Everyone thinks Daredevil's cool. Like, I don't see a lot of Daredevil hate online. There's not a lot of discourse over Daredevil. People kind of all accept, like, yeah, no, he's a cool character. The only time I see discourse is when people bring up the movie. Ooh. That's when the discourse
Daredevil
happens.
is awesome, but I'm going to use a hockey analogy. It feels like he's never a first-line player. It always feels like he's a second-line player, and I don't know why. Like, Marvel never treats him like he's on the A team. Always treats him like he's on the B team.
Yeah, no, and I'll say this. Maybe this will entice you a little bit, but there is a little image, a little cameo of Daredevil in X-Men 97, really quick. And when that happened, Twitter went crazy. They were like, "Oh, fucking Daredevil!" Like, people were losing their minds. I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like, people were happy, and people were like, "I want a Daredevil show now. Like, give us a Daredevil cartoon." Like, that's cool. Like, I was like, yeah, because that's something that we never got before, really. So, yeah, give us something like that. But it's cool that when that happens, people are, like, giving their props to Daredevil. Hell, Daredevil's in the fucking Coca-Cola ad for their new Coca-Cola drinks. For their Marvel. I have the Daredevil one! Because I had one here, and that's what it reminded me.
Completely unintentional.
And I looked over, and it has it, because yesterday I got it, and I had the Juggernaut one. But this is one from, like, a week ago I got to throw away, like, the bottle. But I was like, oh, wait, it has Daredevil on it. So, like, in the ad, it's, like, him. But that ad is so cool, because it's, like, characters I don't think Marvel would push. It's, like, Daredevil, Colossus, who else? Of course, you know, Deadpool's in it. Wolverine's in it. Who else? Black Widow. And it was like, when I saw Colossus and Daredevil and Juggernaut, I was like, that's cool that Marvel's pushing, like, these other characters again. Like, that makes me happy that I'm seeing all these characters, you know, getting the limelight. So it's cool. It feels like the comics, like they just have the free reign to use all their characters, and it's so cool. It's so cool. And what made me happy? They were all little animated characters, so they looked like the comic books. They were little 3D animated people, and when they showed Daredevil, he, like, turned his head, and all the colors changed, and his sonar went off, and I was like, oh, that's fucking cool with all the, like, the circles. I was like, that is so cool that they added that into the ad. So you can tell even Coca-Cola likes Daredevil. So, oh man, Daredevil underrated. If you're not reading any of his stuff, definitely read the Straczynski stuff, or not Straczynski. Was it Straczynski? Who wrote
Zdarsky?
Zdarsky, Chip Zdarsky. It was someone with a weird start to their name. Yeah, Chip's run, dude, amazing. And the current run now is because the writer was in talks with Chip throughout the entire process, because it picks up where he left off. So what you're reading now is all stamp of approval by Chip Zdarsky from what he made. So I love the new run too. It really focuses on, like, the religious aspect of Daredevil, where he's literally a priest by day and Daredevil by night, and he has that conflict where he's like, I'm a man of God, but wearing the skin of the devil just feels right. And I'm like, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, he battles with himself where it's like, I shouldn't be doing this because it's not right to do, but the city needs me and it feels good to do. Like, he's, like, finding a reason to do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, talking himself into it every issue.
I like the idea of the writer who took after Zdarsky, like, being in contact with Zdarsky and be like, is this okay? Is this cool?
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Because it reminds me of when Bendis wrote Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
The end of that run, Daredevil ends up in jail. Bendis and Malieve move on and they work on something else. Can't remember what it is. Maybe New Avengers or something like that. Brubaker takes over Daredevil, and that run starts off with Brubaker more or less being like, okay, well, I have to figure out a way to get Daredevil the fuck out of jail.
Mm-hmm.
But it picks off right after the Bendis run. Whereas I feel like a lot of writers would just be like, well, I'm just going to ignore everything that happened.
Yeah.
Like, he's already out of jail, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to, like, offer, like, any backstory to it. But no, Brubaker was like, no, I'm going to figure out a way to get him out of jail. And I'm going to make a story out of it.
And which is what I liked about this one, too, is because, like, people who don't know, Chip sent Daredevil. Daredevil died and went to hell. Like, he died and went to hell. So when they announced Daredevil's coming out, people are like, huh? He's in hell. Like, how is he back? And they found a way to do it, man, where he fought his way out of hell, but he doesn't remember how he did it or how he got back. He just remembers that he was Daredevil, but he pretends that other people... He pretends to stay dead so that he doesn't ruin other people's lives, because he knows that being a priest away from everything is saving other people's lives. But he is starting to get flashbacks of shit, and the person that's helping him is Elektra. But she's, like, not being very forceful about it. Like, she'll go by his window, and he's like, I recognize that smell. Why do I recognize that smell? Like, who? And he starts thinking about it, and there's one issue it hits, and he's like, Elektra, and you're like, oh, fuck. He's going to remember everything, and he's like, I know who I am, and it's him with the suit, and you're like, oh, my God. Like, this book is great. But it's cool because Chip signed off on all this. So, like, when he comes out of hell and he comes back, it's like, yeah, I still consider it a part of his run. And they refer back to a lot from that run, but they do it in a way where if you didn't read it, you don't feel like lost, because they'll cover it, and like in their conversations, they talk about it very naturally about like what's happening in the world, which I like. It's very natural. So you can jump into it and not have to read that run. It's very good. Plus, dude, it's Daredevil sending demons to hell that are taking over people's bodies, like doing prayers and taking them to hell while he's like in his Daredevil costume. It's a great visual. An absolutely amazing visual with like the rosary in his hand. So cool. So cool. Like he's condemning demons back to hell. It's so fucking cool. It's like Daredevil Constantine. Mix it together. So great. He has the literal power of God. It's very cool. But the last book here, to cap off this list.
Sorry to cut you off, Gabe.
No, you're good.
Before we move on, I just want to point out that in the Daredevil excerpt there, it says that Daredevil is still flying high from the Kevin Smith related sales
There
boost.
you go. There we go. That answered your question. Perfect. Well, this last one here was one that caught me off guard, but when I was doing my research for this Ajax, it made complete sense.
It does.
Number 10 on this list from Top Cow is Lara Croft. And I saw this and I was like, really? Lara Croft? Okay. At this time, she's appeared in the Witchblade one-shot. She's shown up as a semi-returning character in the Witchblade books. They even talk about that in the little excerpt there, saying every time she shows up in a Witchblade book, they get excited. Everyone does. It's Lara Croft. That's a cool crossover from the video games.
Yep.
Tomb Raider number 1 wouldn't release until November of 1999. But brother, when that book releases, do you want to know the estimated amount of units that book sold in November of 1999? Take a guess.
Obviously high figure.
It is a high figure.
In the six figures, of course.
Mm-hmm.
180?
Close. 189,455 units.
Oh my god.
That is more than what X-Men sold in April of 1999. This was outselling the X-Men when it came out. So the hype behind her was warranted. People wanted a Tomb Raider book, and they got it. And I read the half issue, and it was really good. And I see why people wanted it, because it was a fun time. It just was like, let's take stuff from the game and put it in the comic. And that's what they did, and it's really good.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Gabe, was like the video game at this time is probably the hottest video game in the world. Or at least it's in the conversation for it. Because there's already, at this time in 99, there's already 4 Tomb Raider games out. And they were all greatest hit sellers for Sony.
Yep, exactly. And not only was this the #1 selling book of November, Ajax, this was the #1 comic book of the year. That's how much it sold of the year. It came out in November, and it's the top selling #1 book of 1999.
Wow.
It is the book of 1999, based on the estimated units collected and reported to Comic-Con, which these are pretty accurate because they're all taken from total number from the distributors of what they sold to stores.
That's really impressive.
Yeah. It just showed up in, I think I think the half issue came out a little sooner before that, and I think #0 came out in June, if I'm correct. I keep saying half, but I think the half issue was #0. That came out in about June-ish. But I'm trying to think if that was like a Wizard exclusive. I know Wizard did have, I think they did have a Tomb Raider book. But when the actual #1 came out, as you can see, it showed up late to the party, but goddamn, it was the most talked about at the party.
You know why I find that so impressive? Historically speaking, video game comic books have not done well.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tomb Raider comes along, and it just blows everyone's expectations out of the water.
It's amazing. Dude, the Bad Girl era, it was untouchable. Untouchable.
It was.
That was a big part of it, too. It's like we get a badass Lara Croft, like, mystery book. You know what I mean? And at this time...
I also think part of why it was so good is because Dan Jurgens was writing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also think of what else was selling at this time. At this time, we had Danger Girl already out. Another really well-selling book. Similar concept. So they knew the formula worked. So why not do it? So, and I believe, didn't J. Scott Gamble do some work for that as well?
He might have. I remember the guy that usually did Tomb Raider stuff was J.D. Smith.
J.D. Smith, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh, he did some covers. He did some like cover art for Tomb Raider. He even did a Battle Chaser cover. Interesting.
I always loved the covers of Tomb Raider because it just, to me, it's classic.
Oh man, like her like rock climbing and shit. Like she's like looking down at you.
It's classic Top Cow like house style. Like I just don't know how to describe it. Like Top Cow had a house like style that I always just found so visually appealing.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, I found that great picture too of her like perched up on the rock with the guns in her hand and shit. Like that shit's so cool, dude. Yeah, no, it was this image I'm about to send you is probably when I think of the Tomb Raider comics, this is the first image that comes to my mind. Without a shadow of a doubt. This is the one that comes to mind immediately.
Sunglasses. Yeah, exactly. When they draw over the sunglasses, I love that.
So for my comic book I got coming out, Ajax, those sunglasses look a little familiar, don't they?
They sure do.
Guess what I was inspired by? The Top Cow guys and all the shit they were doing, which was awesome. My character's very Top Cow inspired, so... Man, J. Scott Campbell even did some Walking Dead covers, and they look awesome of Michonne. So, yeah, no, he did do some Tomb Raider stuff as well. I'm trying to think. It was Michael Turner, too, did some stuff for her, right?
For Tomb Raider? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely.
That's what I was... All right. Oh, wait, that image I sent you is that
Michael
him?
Turner,
yeah. It is Michael Turner.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe the image they use in that Wizard, actually, all the women I believe in this Wizard list are all Michael Turner, or if I'm correct. Witchblade, Fathom, and Lara Croft, I believe. All three of them. Not Buffy, but... I don't know about that I don't know about that Witchblade. I don't think Witchblade is him. I can't tell.
He did do Witchblade for a while, though.
Yeah, I can't tell from that exact picture if that's him. It just doesn't look like the hair he draws. You know? Yeah. All his hair kind of looks like wet, almost, you know? Like silky.
I call it, it's like wrestler hair.
Yeah,
like wrestlers,
that's a great comparison.
They all spray down their hair so it looks wet, yeah.
Holy shit, I never thought of that comparison. That is a great comparison. Because I'm looking at the one of like her and Witchblade, and I'm like, yeah, literally look like a tag team. They look like a wrestling tag team. And they both got, the wet hair and everything. Well, there was a more of the month, too. It's a little funny villain that they point out here, and it's Tattooed Man. The Tattooed Man from DC.
I've never heard of the Tattooed Man.
Me neither. So, yeah, that's the Tattooed Man. If you guys want to look into him, he was a crook. His luck chains are in a shootout. So it was shoot out in a chemical plant. Of course, because that's like, even they say here, that's how your best villain story starts, at a chemical plant. And he gets all fucked up from it. Oh, man. But, Ajax, we are getting close to our time here. We do want to thank everyone for listening. We are going to be back next month for our issue 16. In that, Drew will be returning. And, Ajax, you're going to have to look at some actors. Because we're going to be casting our own X-Men movies. You, me, and Drew are going to be casting our own movies. What the guidelines are, we don't want it to be as vague as this one, so we do have some guidelines we want to come up with. We just don't know what yet. You know what I mean? We were thinking maybe like eras, like, oh, you get the 90s. If you were to make like a 90s team, or if I was to make a 2000s team, and if he was to make a current team, maybe something like that I was thinking. Like we each get like a time frame, like a decade, you know, the 90s, 2000s, and the 10s.
I'm cool with that.
That'd be a fun idea. I'll run that by him. But we do want to come up with some sort of guideline, so it's not like, all right, this is my cast of 1 million people where I talk forever about it. And there's no like story script you're coming up with. It's just like, who would play your Cyclops? Who would play your Wolverine? Who would play your Rogue? Stuff like that. So, and also you can mix up the teams if you want to put some weird characters on there, like fucking, I don't know. If you want to make, I don't know. Hell, if you want to make maybe an X-Force team, if that's where you want to go. If you want to make an X movie of an X-Force team.
The reason why Gabe is struggling is because there's so many weird X-Men characters that it's hard to just come up with one.
Exactly. I was thinking I wanted to go towards Marrow, but I was like, that'd be kind of cool to see in the movie if they did Marrow. If they did it right.
Marrow's probably one of my favorite, like, underrated X-Men characters.
There's a big shout out to Spike from the animated show, X-Men Evolution. Big shout out to you, Spike. You just had the same power, but I loved you and I miss you. I want him to come back. I know Marrow took your spot, but buddy, I won't forget you. I won't forget you, Spike. You rode the cool skateboard and everything. I'll never forget you. You had the cool hair. He had like the Wesley Snipes blade hair, which I thought was awesome.
That's right.
Like the high cut top with like the design in it. That was awesome. But yeah, so in our one shot that we'll be doing a little later on, you guys can listen to it. We are going to be talking about the final saga of a doomed universe. Number 3, the last one, which means the one shot next month will be a new book. So look forward to that. But we are going to be finishing up the final saga of a doomed universe. This is where it all comes to a head. This is where the meta gets crazy. So look forward to that, and we will see you guys in the one shot. Bye.